Scott. So this is what I'm going to do. This is a report which you're going to get, which has got all of the Genius tests, all of the levels to it, and so on. I'm about to bring Scott on he had a very different business, but he had a pretty clear vision of what he wanted to create long term. And here is a couple of slides which Scott can't see because he's on the feed. Was him moving up the ladder from basically where he was, where one business, which was his business promoting properties in Australia, wasn't doing what he wanted to do, or wasn't doing what it used to do. He really shifted his vision goals in terms of what he was doing with that to some other markets, like American market. He then basically moved more recently into what he was always very passionate about. So his company, International Property Solutions, which is IPS, was his company, which was very much the traditional way of running a property business, or at least international property business. But he was already evolving, growing that. Picking up press. It's really got a lot of traction because it's on a wave. And this is one of the most important things, actually building a vision on something which builds onto a wave as well. So, Scott, I'm going to come right to you to just share in your own words the pathway, as we've been working together, of you just basically saying, well, here's the vision of what I want to achieve, and then from what wasn't working through to basically what you're doing today, just how, what the biggest challenges were in that, but also what the breakthroughs were as you went through that process as well.
So thanks very much, Roger, and to all of you. Yeah, I'm here. So hopefully you guys can all hear me clearly. I apologize, the internet connection is not very good here. So in simple terms, Roger, I think the easiest way to describe it was I had the privilege of spending the last week with you on Necker Island with Richard Branson, which for me was a dream come true. And I must have had 50 to 100 friends ask me, how did I do that? And I think everything you talk about is that once you're clear of what you want, then it's actually quite easy to get there. And unfortunately, most people are not clear of what they want, and so they don't get there in the first place. So to answer your question, I had the privilege of speaking on stage with you back in 2010. I signed up for Crystal Circle the very next day, and you helped me quite quickly establish my future vision. And at the time, I was helping people. My company IPS has helped people invest in South Africa, Australia, the UK. But after the GFC, it was pretty tough going. And but my biggest problem was, no matter how hard I worked, I wasn't getting the results that I wanted. My success strategy has always just been to be fitter, faster, or work harder than anyone else. But in the work environment, that really didn't work for me. And you showed me with the whole wealth dynamics test that I was a creator and that I needed to find myself a supporter. And so I can remember the very place I was standing the day you told me that. And I knew exactly who that person was. I went out and headhunted him. And so not only did I change focus to America, where I could get cash flow a lot quicker, but much more importantly and significantly, I managed to bring on a number two in a supporter role. And that allowed him to get, it took me about a year to get him in a position where he could run RPS completely, and ultimately allowed me to focus 100% on Wealth Migrate, which is my real, passion. I wrote a dissertation in 1998 on how technology was going to change the property or real estate industry. And truly what crowdfunding is and where Wealth Migrate is going is now allowing that to take place. So, the three major lessons that I've learned from you so far, Roger, was firstly, how do you get a number two? Everyone told me that it wasn't possible. I didn't know how to find it. I could never afford it. So, everyone, I'm sure there's lots of people on this call that all want to have a number two, but they don't know how to get it, and they don't know how to get the money. But I come back to the metaphor of Necker Island. When you know exactly what you want, you will get it. You will make a plan, no matter how. And that's exactly what I did in terms of getting the number two. The second thing for me was you taught me how to write a book. I'd been asked how to write a book since 2005. And the thought of writing a book, I'd rather cut both my legs off and bleed to death. But again, it was very much in the coaching realm where you said, look, just go and get, and I don't know what you call it, whether you call it a publisher or whatever, but in simple terms, it's someone who holds your feet to the fire and go and write a book. And I did that, and that changed me from just a salesman into an authority. And it's a very nice place to be because you're no longer selling people things. They're actually asking you for the information. So that was a significant big step for me. And the third one was really actually on a Crystal Circle call back in, I think it was 2011 or 2012, no, probably 2011, where you spoke about the top 10 trends, and crowdfunding was one of them. And although I'd written my dissertation in 1998 on how technology was going to change property, I didn't know what the word crowdfunding was. And you literally showed me and said, look, this is what it is. This is crowdfunding. And I mobilized everything I had. I got some pretty influential people who you've met, Roger, on board, and we managed to set up what is now the global real estate marketplace. And ultimately, what we're aiming on doing is leveraging our already existing experience in international markets, but marrying it together with technology. And you know, it's super exciting because what it's going to do is allow people anywhere in the world to invest in the best projects, the best opportunities, with the best partners, and in simple terms, through technology. So I don't know if that sums it up for you quick enough, or if you want more detail.
No, that's great. First of all, I think that's one thing super important that you've said, which is like whether it's getting on to next horizon dream, or whether it's actually getting a business to the level you want to get to. It all is about like with happen, and then the doorways open now that's happened. And as you say, most people never can make that commitment because they don't know how it's going to happen. So they say, well, I'm not going to commit to it then. So I think that's a really important takeaway for everyone here, because I'm going to be everyone on this call be setting up your vision of what you want to be, and don't let like the fact that you don't yet know how get in the way of that. But the question I got, which I think is probably the biggest one, is around the difference of setting a goal or vision for business on a wave that has already crashed, or where the trend is going against you. And the difference of that, like, so for example, when you were in the Australian property market and the market wasn't anything like it as buoyant as it was a couple of years earlier, and the difference of struggling with that or struggling with the wrong number two compared to the experience you've had like more recently, when you go on a trend on something like crowdfunding, and what that's allowed in terms of how that gets picked up by the events you've been asked to speak to, the doors that have opened to you. Do you want to just share people that and the reason I'm saying this is that a lot of people have a dream of something where they go, oh, this is what I really want to do. I want to go out and make a difference in education, or I want to go out and make a difference in wellness, whatever it is they say. But then they're in a trend, or they're doing something like running events when no one's going to events anymore, or trying to do evergreen webinars when they're not working anymore. And it's like, and so they're following trends that no longer worked, but they worked a couple. And how important it is to tie what you want to do with an easiest way to do it by going with the trend of whatever is growing at the time as well. So do you want to share just the difference in your feeling of working your butt off in times when things were against you, compared to basically what happens when you get into the flow? So there, Scott. We have Scott, but he's on mute. Aha, Scott.
Sorry, they had me muted there. Roger, what I was saying is, I think if there's a single word that got me excited when I signed up in 2010 for Crystal Circle, it was the word flow. And I actually remember one of our first coaching calls, and the analogy that I gave was it felt like we were pushing a cart up a hill, and then every time I took a little bit of focus off or whatever, the cart would come hurtling back down the hill and squash half my employees in the process. And it was just this never-ending, very dramatic metaphor of trying to, it was really hard work, and it just didn't seem to be going anywhere. And to use the same metaphor, we changed to America, where there was huge demand, great discounted properties, and literally we sold more properties on our first buyer's trip on one trip than we sold the entire year in Australia. So it just felt like the cart was going downhill. And then we actually had a problem, and that's when I phoned Roger again on my monthly call and said, no, I've got a problem. I'm doing too much business and I don't have enough resources. So now the cart's going too fast and now it's squashing people. Similar problem. And that's when you said, bring on a number two. Bring on someone that knows how to build systems, has the ability to hire the tier 2, tier 3 employees so that you can ultimately do volume. And I mean, the good news just on the RPS side, I mean, we've done over 300 properties now in the US, which is phenomenal in comparison with what it was like pushing that cart up the hill. I mean, I don't know if you know this, Roger, but on our last buyer's trip, we just did 23 properties in one week. which is pretty, pretty astounding. There's not many property people in the world that can say that did 23 properties in 1 week. And I'm not talking new developments. I'm talking existing properties. So, and then really when Wealth Migrate came along, IPS, I've tried to raise money for IPS I've been running the company for 11 years. And, at the end of the day, we help people invest in international property. It's nothing too exciting, nothing too revolutionary. And, we were always selling off-plan developments. So we would do all the work now to get paid in a year or sometimes even 2 or 3 years. And so we always had cash flow constraints because we could never, we were always getting paid on the back end. And in simple terms, when crowdfunding came along, between you and I, Roger, I just raised another $225,000 since I saw you. I think I saw you on Tuesday, and I raised it by Friday, and it took 2 emails. And and it's phenomenal when you're on a trend, and when people can see that this is going to be something that is going to be momentous, whether it's you or not. It's a bit like picking a horse. You've got to have the horse that's in the derby to be in the race, and once you're in the race, people will put money down on you. Whether you're the leading horse or the one at the back, they still see that you've got a chance. And so I suppose I speak in a few metaphors here, but when you're going with the flow, it really is just that much easier. And actually, the only challenges you have is trying to keep a balance between the accelerator and the brake. Between you and I, I use that metaphor a lot, and that's really what I'm working with you a lot on. Is that we want to impact 1 billion people, which is a huge number, and it needs a lot of acceleration. But we also need to apply the brake every now and again and not go too fast and wipe everyone out, and the team get too tired, etc., etc. So hopefully that answers that question.
Very cool. Awesome. All right. Okay, Scott. I'm going to come back in the second half. I know you won't be around in the second half. I'm going to come back at the whole point. I'm going too fast, too slow, anyway. Welcome to it. But let me finish one final question for you, which is, you're talking about like impacting 1 billion people. I know when you were out last year, and you were talking about the whole, in fact, together we're talking about the whole concept of the wealth movement. Yeah, do you want to share just like that element about bringing the purpose-driven part into the business concepts as well, and how I know that attracted the likes of people like Hilda and others who have come in as investors by knowing there's more to it than basically just trying to build a business. So do you want to share a bit about like the inspiration behind Wealth Migrate in terms of the wealth movement and then that whole concept? Scott, you can unmute again.
Sorry, they keep muting me. No, so the very first business I built back in 2003 when I was 26, I applied Zig Ziglar's principle, which is you can have anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. And, a lot of people think that that's just a bunch of words, but I want to repeat it. If you can have anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. And what, really when I was in Bali with Roger, and when I do something, I do it 120%. I was there in November and December. So for anyone that says that money is too difficult or time away from family, it's rubbish. If you want what you want, then you need to do whatever it takes. And we were there, and we were saying, listen, we want to impact 1 billion people. How are we going to do it? And with technology and the fact that I live in Africa, I see poverty every single day. And the biggest reason that there's poverty in the world is the whole wealth gap and the widening of the wealth gap, and actually the lack of access to property or real estate. And with technology, with the adoption of mobile phones, every single person on this planet soon will have access to a mobile phone. And with mobile phone comes education and knowledge, and after that comes the ability to invest in quality assets. And there's no reason why, through real estate crowdfunding or property crowdfunding, that we can't get it down to $1 per person per investment. And when we do that, we change the world. And I had a fairly stupid name. I was calling it Project Double the Wealth. And I sat in a mastermind with, I forget how many people, Roger, maybe 30 people, some really great people there, very well-known names. And they were like, no, it doesn't really make sense. So the dream was there, the vision was there, but the name wasn't very well branded or communicated. And in November at your resort there, we came up with the wealth movement together, of which you were part of. And it's got some massive momentum already. And, the names and the likes of the people behind it. And to answer your question, investors today want more. They want more than just a return. They want to know that they're doing good. And I mean, I know that you had a whole session with Richard Branson just on Saturday about how can we do business that's not only good for investors, but good for the planet, the environment, and for the population. And really, for me, the best analogy I can give you, to have a movement or a purpose is a bit like having a hot air balloon. So your business is the little basket that's down below, but the movement is like the big balloon that just pulls you upwardly in the right direction. And that's the metaphor I use for the wealth movement. It's driving, it's our purpose, it's what's gaining all the momentum, and Wealth Migrate is just the basket of how it actually takes place.
Awesome. Very cool. I love that analogy of that. That's pretty great. Okay, anyone who's interested in knowing more about Wealth Migrate, you can actually go in and actually get subscribed in and join it. It's just there on wealthmigrate.com. So go ahead and do that, right? And you can follow with everything that Scott's up to. And hey, Scott, I know you're going to head off now, but thanks so much for sharing. That's been really awesome. Really appreciate it. Scott has either gone or no, he's still there. Scott has either gone.
You got me? No, you got me there. Okay. Yeah, no, I just want to say to all of you online, firstly, well done for being online, and I really endorse what is happening, and I just challenge you all to really find your purpose, find your dream, and go out there and do it. And Roger, thanks for allowing me the time to share. If nothing else, something else I came up with on your island was that one of my purposes was to inspire people, and hopefully my story, if nothing else, can inspire a few people who are online today. So thank you for your time.
Awesome, very cool. Thanks a lot, Scott. Cheers. Catch up with you soon. Alrighty, and I just got a note from Lena to say that Simon may be online. Simon, are you there? We'll see. He's one of those sneaky people that puts away when he's not away, which can I do as well. So we'll see if he shows up or not. But anyway, there's something that Scott mentioned there, which I think is really important for many of us on this call, which is, and I've talked about this in one of my videos around how wealth isn't something out there. Wealth is something which is about, just like the sweet spot when you are playing music or when you are driving a car, is that point when everything's at just the right time, right? Like, wealth happens in nature. It's like nature already goes at the pace of wealth, which is why everything grows and everything flourishes, and animals can live, and that all is part and parcel of that same process, which is basically what Buckminster Fuller says when he says wealth is controlled time, which means if you go too fast, you're over accelerating, you've got too many ideas, you've got too many things starting, you run out of money because you've got too many things that you're trying to invest in terms of both time and money. So some of you are going too fast, so the wealth is disappearing because basically you've over-invested in time and money. On the other hand, some are going too slow, which is I've got an idea, but I haven't got it started yet, and so you end up basically spending too long in the gap between where you're at and the customer giving you money, and so again, you're out of reach of that because you're not catching up fast enough. And again, you end up basically, it's like a bucket that's trying to chase a tap. And if you're at the right point, it's always filling up. If you go too fast, then you're not filling it up. If you go too slow, you're not filling it up. And so that's basically what wealth really is. And for most of us, you can feel that flow. And if you're not in that right flow, it's about, do I need to speed up or do I need to slow down? And that's really the key to all of this, right? So I'm going to give Simon a call. This is a new experiment. I've never tried this before. Typing while I'm on GoToWebinar. Who knows? It might work. If I can get Simon on here. So this is what happens when you've got busy people who are in the property industry. They're not necessarily on GoToWebinar. Hey, Simon, can you hear me?
Hi.
Awesome. That works. Look, I think everyone can hear you as well. Okay. Very cool. Hey, let me just check with Lena or Suraj.
Fantastic. I have actually.
Yes.
Oh, good. Excellent. Can you guys hear Simon okay? To either one of you,
yeah.
Just double checking.
Yeah, quite good.
All right. Okay, great. Thanks, Lena. Okay, cool. So this is a different perspective on the same story from a different angle. So Simon, basically, I'm just going to do a quick intro with Simon. I'm putting up your slide on your Property Investors Network, which is basically just in the same way that Scott, his main business has been the property sales side. With Simon has been mentoring. He's based in the UK, whereas Scott's based in South Africa. Simon also was in Necker Island, and it was just a business as well. Simon's one that he set up is called Crowd Property, and he set that up again very recently, and he's getting exactly the same kind of traction that Scott is in terms of all these different, like press that he's getting in the UK and so on. That's all coming out of it as well. And what's really interesting about Simon's process he's gone through is if you actually go to the pin meeting site, which I'm going to do right now, you'll see that he's really leveraged his time pretty well by having all these different people who've taken on the pin meetings, and pin means Property Investors Network. So he's effectively created a community, and from that community, then people come in, have mentoring, and so on. But the most powerful thing about this is actually if you look at just what the reach is on a daily basis, you can go down here and you can see, like here is a list of all the different places that have got networking going on across England. There's a couple today, as you can see, in Essex and in Cheltenham, and they're all going on through April through May, and all of these have them every single month. So basically that means that Simon's reach is extended by him using leverage effectively, and this is really leveraged through multiplying by having a system that others can follow and others have taken on board, and now he's doing that at a whole different scale when it comes to the whole crowd property crowdfunding as well. So you would have heard me, Simon, just getting Scott to share the pathway of him just shifting from a vision of what he wanted to achieve within property, and then upgrading that vision when technology grew with it as well, and getting into crowdfunding. Do you want to share, again, the same similar but from your story, what happened in terms of when we started working together, and then again that upgrade that you went through to start crowd property?
Yeah, absolutely, Roger. And so thank you very much for asking me on the call. I'm glad we've persevered. Technology's working at last.
Yay!
So I started investing in '95, and I didn't know what to do. I did it the hard way. But by 2003, I completely replaced my income and given up my corporate life. And people started to ask me what I had done and how I did it. So I started telling people, and I wanted to get a group of like-minded people together. One of the things that we all learned on NECA, Roger, it was a group of truly inspirational people who were just able to expand my thinking. That's one of the things I love about the Crystal Circle that you run, Roger. You have a great way of making people think bigger and see the picture in a different way. And that's really what I was looking to achieve from NECA. And so back in 2003, I wanted to network with other people and learn from other people. And one thing that we talked about on NECA, Richard Branson has become very good at seeing patterns. He's a very good listener. He asks people questions, listens to what the people say, and he recognizes patterns. And I recognized that without really knowing that a long time ago, I wanted to look at what other investors were doing, learn from them so I could work out what I could apply. And that's why I thought getting a group with other like-minded people together on a monthly basis is a good idea. And because we started to train people, and we don't sell any properties, we just teach people how to invest. It's slightly different from what Scott does. We got people who didn't want to come to the meetings in Birmingham, and they wanted to start their own meetings. So through people who we trained and done really well, we were able to grow this network. And it's kind of spread. We now have 52 meetings around the country, and as I say, I'm not involved. I go to the meetings when I'm in the area, but I don't have to go. It kind of runs itself, which is great. And when I started working with you, which was probably about 3 years ago, maybe, when I was a change maker for you. And I've been doing blessed. I need to keep up to date what's happening in the market. And so I was doing these bigger deals, and I was typically working with people in my group, my environment, who have got £50,000 or more. They would lend me money personally to put into projects. They look over my shoulder, learn, and they get a great return on their money. And that was working really well. And I was kind of getting to the point where a lot of people I was at work where they might have £10,000, £15,000 learn as well, but it wasn't really worth me having hundreds of people involved in a deal. And it was kind of a number of things came together at the same time. And partly when you're fast forward your business event, you're talking about crowdfunding, and although I was there on the panel sitting there, I kind of thought, oh, maybe I should be using peer-to-peer lending or crowdfunding. So my vision was to have a way that I could get lots and lots of people who want to get involved in my deals to come and lend money to me and see what I was doing. And then I thought big. I thought, well, I've got this big network of people who are all finding great deals, and some of them are struggling to get finance. And because we understand property, we might finance deals that banks may not finance. And I thought, well, let's make this a platform that's a peer-to-peer lending platform for anybody who's got a great deal and they've got to be experienced, and anybody who wants to get a great return on their money. So we really democratise this so that anyone with as little as £500 can come in and pledge against the project, and they get an equivalent of that percent per annum. And we look after their security, but we take a first charge security on the building, so that we can minimise any risk in case lenders default. A while to get going, but you talked about getting the right time in the wave. Well, our first deal took like 5 months to find. Our second deal took 5 weeks to find. And finally, we got the proof of concept, and now things are starting to really starting to get the traction for us. So the vision is there. The vision is to grow this into a £100 million company, which is very possible in the crowdfunding environment.
Very cool. I mean, like, there's something, I've been showing your website, and I was showing Scott's website earlier as well on the screen. And there's something about all of this when I think some people hear the kind of numbers that you and Scott are now talking about, which are the $100 million, £100 million businesses, which now there's no question, because you're on that wave, that's where you're going to end up unless you really mess it up. So it's going to happen. But as that's happening, as you're going down that line, the real question is one around what technical expertise you need on all of this. So I know that neither of you started from basically, going and coding at university and all that kind of stuff. This is, just coming and saying there's a need in the market, and we're going to go and fill it. So do you want to share if anyone who's like a technophobe or says, well, I can't think of having this is something called Exponential Organizations, which is a book which came out recently by Salim Ismail. And I guess it goes through, if you want to have 100 million that within both Scott and Simon's businesses, they're putting in place things like algorithms, things like the community crowd side, which is where crowdfunding comes in, having dashboards, having an online presence, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, like, when you decided this is what you're going to do, what was the process you went through to then find the right expertise to actually build your site for you? You still there, Simon? Whoa, he dropped. Let's try again. See if it works. Has gone offline. Okay, looks like we lost Simon. Okay, thanks, Simon. Okay, so he might still hear us on the GoToWebinar, so you might want to just drop that in the comments if you can, Simon. But I'm going to let you. Sorry, lost you. Can you comment on this message? Okay, and thanks for your sharing. All right, okay, that will be it. All right, and you can see what he's written there as well. But we're going to keep rolling here as well. And to answer my own question, I can tell you in both their cases, they went out and basically got support just by going out and contracting and say, who can build this for us? And so don't ever think that you need to be a techie to do all of that as well, right? By the way, I wanted to show, I couldn't help show this. When we were on Necker, this is the sumo competition, and there is Simon, and there's Simon there, and there is Scott there, basically battling it out on the sumo field. So we had a lot of fun while we were out there as well. But basically, you're getting the idea here. There's two fundamental cores. Number one, if there's something that you really feel that you want to achieve in life, don't go for second best. Say, well, what is that vision of what I want to achieve? Number two, make sure you're rolling on a wave, right? And that doesn't mean a wave in terms of the thing you want to achieve. It's the wave on how you're going to achieve it. So what I'm really covering here, I'm going to come back to this in a moment, which is the missions that I'm going to share with you. What I'm covering here is the fact that there's this, as you know, within wealth dynamics, these 4 different steps. There's the whole what area, which is like what to do. There's the whole who area, and a lot of us get stuck, create a big change in this particular industry, or I want to, create this kind of lifestyle for myself. Who's going to help me to do that? Well, there's no one showing up, so I guess it's just me, right? So the who gets you stuck to begin with. I don't know who's going to help me. Or the how gets you stuck, where you go, well, I don't know how to do it. So if you get stuck by the who and the how, then before you know it, you find nothing actually ends up happening, right? And the last thing you do is to actually put a when in. Like, okay, so what's going to happen is I'm going to achieve the $100,000 a month salary. When's it going to happen? I'm not going to put a date on it because I still don't know how. I still don't know who's going to help me, right? So that's a little bit like getting in a plane and not telling people when you're going to take off because you're not confident you're going to fill the plane. When in fact you've got to do the other way around. You've got to say, no, I've got to say what I'm going to do, and I'm going to say when I'm going to do it, and then the right who and the how will then show up, right? So this is about you creating a future vision. Say in a year's time, what's going to happen, right? And it's going to happen in a year. And so if that's going to happen in a year, well then how am I going to do that? Who's going to help me? Well, I'll open up a year's worth of time to figure that one out. And that kind of like is what this diagram is all about, which is most of us never create the arrow, or we'll create an arrow with no tail feathers, right? We'll have an arrow which is a what, which is like a big to-do list. None of it's got whens against it, so it all goes flying all over the place. None of it hits the target. And it's you basically throwing the arrow instead of getting a bow. The bow is the who and the how. And the point is, when you set the arrow, which is this is what I'm going to do, this is when I'm going to do it, then the bow will show up for you, right? So this is all about the core of the future vision. Do not get fearful about the fact you don't know how yet. You could hear in both Scott and Simon's story, when they went committed to say, this is what I'm going to achieve, they didn't know how. And I can guarantee you, even with the crowdfunding and what they're doing today, they still don't know how, and they still don't know who, because the people that show up will be the ones that get attracted to them. The ways they go about doing things will evolve as the technologies change as well. No one can predict what will happen in 3 to 5 years' time, but as long as you're actually setting up with a very clear mission, and I love what Scott said about basically being the balloon, right? Having a purpose that's a balloon that lifts the basket, where your business is just a basket. The bigger the balloon, the bigger the purpose, the more you can share it with other people and grow with it as well. So let me give you, first of all, a couple of key actions, and then I'm going to cover some of the Q&A that's come through as well. So a number of you have been filling out the things that have been around here on successes and challenges. I'm going to come back to this in a moment. Some of you have been posting under here as well, which is great. So I think it would be really great is that for anybody that is looking at this Entrepreneur Mastermind link here right now, and I've got lots of Skype activity happening here. So okay, that was Scott there mentioning, and you know, we're all good. Okay, so we're cool. All right, so if you have any other comments or especially biggest learnings from this call, post them underneath this Entrepreneur Mastermind link that's here, right? So we can kind of hear from you, and others can then connect with each other as well. And I highly recommend that you start friending each other on Facebook that are part of this mastermind, connecting with each other as well, because it's going to be not so much just like what we go through on the call, it's going to be what happens between calls as people are supporting each other as well. Okay. So what I will say, there are 4 documents. 2 of them aren't even on Genius to you, but 4 documents I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you the links right now. The first one, I'm going to go through the box here where I've got them loaded up. The first one is the one I just mentioned, which is the Genius report. It's the full pack, which you're going to get a copy of now. So the Genius report, which is this one, which I opened earlier. Somewhere. Where's my Genius report? Okay, there's this one here. All right, so this Genius report here gives you the full pack of all the geniuses. It gives you everything that's in here around going from infrared level up to red level, all the way through to indigo level. They're all in here as well, right? So it's taking a while to load because it's 78 pages. But I'm going to give you this link here so you can just go straight into it, download it, and have this as reference as we're going through the next 12 months together, right? So let me just give you that. Maybe I'll just share this top one here. That should give you a link into it anyway. All right, so I'll give that a go. It's slow internet, which is why it's taking a while here. Okay, so that's one. I'll give you a second one, which is the second one is all of the wealth dynamics. So a number of you have the wealth dynamics report, which is for your own particular wealth dynamics profile. What this is this is something which gives you for every single wealth dynamics profile. So if you want to look at your team, look at the people you need, you see that yes, you have creator here. You can create like brands, and we'll go through their story of how they use their creative profile. Where for the star, it will go through exactly the same thing. Case studies, in this case with Oprah Winfrey, case study with Paul Newman, and so it goes on. Every one of the 8 profiles is in here, so you're getting all of this as well. And that basically, I'm going to just give you the link to that as well. So let's back to the next one, which is the Wealth Dynamics Summary Report. here is a link to this one, right? So this should work as well. I'll double check these links afterwards. So for any reason I'm giving you bad links, you'll know it. But I think these should be okay. It's just super slow and crazy based on the internet right now. Oh, here we go. Okay, wait, should work. And let's just double check. Yeah, sorry, I gave you the wrong links. I'll delete these ones. All right. And then in terms of actions, there are then 2 actions which I'm going to give you as well. So let me just catch up with my thinking here. My brain is working faster than my fingers. Here's the Genius Report one. So this one, I'll give you the link. Nope, this one I just gave you the link to. So going backwards. All right, so summary report. Yeah, there's a share. Okay, see, I'm getting a bit silly here. I'm just going to give you this share here instead of this faster. This share will help. Okay, so that'll give us a share for that. And then the 2 other ones, there's that one there, right? So that's the 2 that I just mentioned. And then the 2 other ones which I'm giving you, which you can get directly on Genius U, is that when you come to Genius U here and you go to missions, the mission we're starting off with, where there's a bit of homework for everybody, is the one which is called the Millionaire Master Plan. So when you go into the Millionaire Master Plan, based on you having done your test, it will allow you to come through this, right? If for any reason you haven't done the test yet, I think most people have on the call, but if for any reason you haven't, you can go and on the YouTube channel where obviously you've got all the videos and so on, you can go to this link on the proceed button in here, and it will give you your own link. If you want to give the Millionaire Master Plan, just want to give it for free, obviously I'd love you to buy the book, but if you don't want to do that and you want to just get it for free, you can come to this link here and it will give you a free link to the to do the test, right? It'll give you a token to do the test. So that then allows you to then actually, that will then lead you into Genius U, and it will allow you to then do this mission, which is here, right? So basically, it unlocks the moment you've actually done the test, okay? So here's the link here to the page. No, that's not the page. Oh, by the way, this here is the, you'll see this video. This is the video where Richard Branson's talking about, I asked him a question around masterminding, and then he talks about masterminding mentoring, and he has some great things that he shares around that. So definitely watch that video if you've not yet watched it. It's actually right below here. Here's the video on the same group page as well. So you've got that on there, right? In terms of the links, I've given you that link there, and I'm now opening this page. I'm just going to give you the link to it. So that will help you anyway if you need to do that. And if you get into Genius U, then the key one is within the Millionaire Master Plan. You see there's videos all the way through. It takes you through all the geniuses. But the most important one is, first of all, the pre-flight checklist, which allows you to, and so I'll give you an example of why this is so important on the pre-flight checklist. It's like taking off. You've heard Simon, you've heard Scott, 2 examples of people that are taking off to the extent that if we were back 3-4 years ago, neither of them would be thinking at that point, let's just go spend a week with Richard Branson on Necker Island. However, here we are 4 years later, and things have progressed so far in their business that that's just something that's a simple, easy thing for them to do, and they can come on board, do the donation to Virgin Unite, which is about $40,000 US, so it wasn't cheap to do it, and then be invited to come onto the island. And basically that was what both of them did, and then by being invited on, by being vetted in, and being at the level which actually allowed them to play for everyone else out there, like that's something which anyone on this call can be in a position to do that by just following through these same steps in the pre-flight checklist. So the pre-flight checklist looks like this, right? Basically it goes through and it allows you to see every step of the checklist visible in front of mind, having a flight path that gives you monthly and personal financial milestones, and following a rhythm to review your future vision and flight path, right? This is what both Scott and Simon did. And then off the back of that, there's a whole bunch of other things that happen around the personal finances, around building your business. We're going to get to all of that this year, but it has to start in the right place, which is what is it you want to achieve, when do you want to achieve it. So that's where basically this pre-flight checklist comes in. You can see that here. You can go through the checklist. I use this myself, by the way, so you can see I've done yes against all the things. And I'll check this every week. Every week I check this. And I'll look at it every week and I'll say, right, have I got my system in place? You know, Have I got basically, my rhythm of my company set up properly? This goes all the way down, and you can see all the way through to pretty much here around having a cash generating asset, blah, blah, are green. And I'm working on these ones right now. This is basically going from blue to indigo. And I know exactly what I need to actually get right to go from red to green. And I'm focusing at those things right now. So I'm not yet a leader in my industry where I'm the first, including people like Richard Branson, that get opportunities before I do. Right? So there's things I need to do to evolve to get to that point. I don't yet have a public listed company, right, or tradable assets that enable to be immediately generate millions in a second. And so as a result of that, I need to unravel assets to get to that point. So I want to shift that by actually having currency I'll create for myself, which is why this is called capitalize your currency. So that's the goal that we have over the next 2 years. So I've got plans on each of these to actually move them up, but it's a very deliberate plan, and it's all part of having this pre-flight checklist. So you can either go directly to this page to do that, or, as you see here, you can actually take this link, which is we have this one as well, and you can just take this and just download it and use it as reference through the whole year as we work together, right? And then the next thing, which is probably the most important one of all, is the future vision one, right? So this next part here, you see your future vision. So down the right-hand side, you can click directly, and I'm kind of shortcutting to get from one to the other. Under here, there's a whole video I've done on future vision. And this allows you to now actually create your entire future vision. And that's all within a second document, which you can download the playbook on as well. And I'm going to give you that direct link here, which is the flight plan. And this allows you to actually set up a future vision where you're actually putting down on one page, and all my Crystal Circle members, they do this already. It's what Scott and Simon have been doing for 3 years now, where they're actually saying in a year's time, this is what will be happening in my life. And there's a very specific process, as I'll show you in a second, that we follow to go through that as well. And by the way, just because we had technical issues at the beginning of the call, I'm giving you a heads up, we'll be on to about 10:05 in this call. So minutes before complete this call, so you get all the content in and the engagement I wanted to get in answering questions and so on as well, right? So this final here was the playbook. I'm going to give you that link. That is the main piece of homework. The rest is reference material and checking it through. But this one, basically, as you see, is all part of the map, which allows you to make sure you're going on the same pathway. And on the flight plan, which I've got a copy of here, you'll see that as you go down this, it does ask you these same questions, right? Like, have I taken the Millionaire Master Plan test? And so like out of 0 to 10, you can check for yourself, right? Do I know my wealth spectrum? Do I know my genius level? Do I have a future? So this third one here, have I written an inspiring future vision? And have I shared my future vision with my mentor and my family, my close friends? These ones are where you can basically be sharing your future vision with me by adding that in on the next call. Within our document here, you can just basically upload it somewhere and provide a link. And I'd love to have a read of basically what your future vision is or what you want to achieve. The key thing about having a future vision is that when you're designing it looking back a year ahead of time, and you're looking backwards and saying, right, over the last year, what am I grateful for? What have I achieved? And you'll find that within this document, if you look at it, you've got number 4 here, or number 3, written a future vision. You can go down to the bottom here. And by the way, even Crystal Circle members and those who've done this before, well, when was the last time you did this? If you haven't done this for over 12 months, go and do this as part of your entrepreneur mastermind, right? Because it's going to make all the difference to your clarity of what you should or shouldn't be doing. All your criteria and what you should be doing should be fitting to say, does this allow me to move towards my future vision, or is it just a distraction? And as long as it's hitting you towards your destination, great. And here it is, right? Here's 83. I have in all areas a year from now. And it shows you exactly how to do this, right? It's all part of this book, which I've just actually given you the link for. Take out one or more sheets of paper for your future vision. You want to have these in a form to post on a wall in your bedroom or study if you can see it every day. Use colors if you're visual. Write it down. Don't type it out. Take an hour of your time, sometimes 2 hours maybe. Sit in a space that inspires you and where you won't be disturbed. Now imagine yourself 1 year from today. Imagine you've achieved the things that would make the year a success. This doesn't mean achieving all your life goals in 1 year. It means having taken manageable steps that stretch you but don't break you in all areas of your life. What improvements will have taken place that will make this year a success in your eyes? Begin with a date in a year's time and write your journal entry. So you're putting yourself a year in the future. Begin each new paragraph with the prompts I've given. Add extra paragraphs to include other important areas of your life that you think about. Share your achievements and highlights of the year. Be as specific as you can and share the story of how you got from where you are today to where you will be. So I do this every year, right? I'll write the date, and then I'll be 1 year in the future. So it'll be, for example, right now, it'll be April 2016, and I'm so grateful for the last year. In the last year, I have, and this is all about using the power of gratitude, which is being grateful for something as opposed to proud for something, and also the power of hindsight as opposed to foresight. It's easier to look down the mountain when you've got at the top than it is to look up the mountain from the bottom, right? So this basically is about what's happened in all parts of your life. And as you write this up, then you're asking yourself, on a 0 to 10 scale, how inspired am I by this, right? And if it isn't yet a 10, see what you need to add to get it up to 10. And then this goes through how to share it, what do you do with it. It's all in here, right? So I'm really taking out all the guesswork of what to do to be successful. Just follow the steps, and that success becomes yours, right? And the most important thing is your clarity of who you want to be for your future. Okay, guys, I am coming back to this. I'm going to refresh because I think there's been a whole bunch of comments and things on here right now. And I want to take the final 10 minutes basically going through with everyone here on the call some of the highlights that have shown up where okay, so some people have asked some questions, so I'll pop on a couple of these before we finish. But some of the highlights rolling through this, as you can see, there's a whole bunch of different people who are putting up different successes, and this is a really good way if you actually get connected in also to whatever it is in terms of their emails and where they are as well, which I think is really important, right? So you've got business owners in Hong Kong, Thailand, with a view of offering one-to-one coaching. So she's obviously building towards the whole way that she's doing her personal development and retreats at the moment, right? You've got some really great things in here around people that are actually starting to really get some great traction. I love what Monica said here, like my success is actually doing right now, and the reason she won a scholarship is that she's impacting an entire country, which we haven't had a lot of clients or a lot of entrepreneurs come and work with so far, and that is pretty amazing what she's doing, the way she's doing it. And she's, I think, in both Vietnam and Cambodia, or I think it's maybe just Cambodia. And here you can see her entire site is also in that language as well. And everything she's been doing and blogging and posting is actually reaching, a whole new community of entrepreneurs that are, and again, some of the fastest growing countries right now are the ones that are out in Southeast Asia in terms of how they're growing. So congratulations to you, Monica, for that. And then there's a whole bunch of other people that you'll see just from the successes they're having and the way they're growing, what they're doing. You can learn a lot from to see how you can then get supported for your own business as well, especially if they're in the same industry as you in terms of what they're up to and what they're doing as well. I love what Beryl said here from New Zealand. Another profitable month, 3 great months in a row. February was the best ever, and then in March we doubled it, and April looking good. And Beryl and Rustika are part of our Crystal Circle, and they've been following along the strategies to really create profit in their business and the way that they're growing, which is amazing. And what's even better is it's becoming ongoing now. So I just spoke to Rustika today about a contract they've just got, which is a 12-month ongoing month-by-month contract, which of course makes life a whole lot easier once you start going down that line. People like Terry Billington, who's one of our mentors in Bali, one of facilitating in Bali, new one-to-one coaching program with 3 new clients, tracking that and saying, here's what's happening. It helps you a lot if you want to go tap into other people as to how they're doing it. Or someone like Caroline here, working remotely in Gran Canaria, she's figured out how to run her, said, right, I'm going to go for a month out to Gran Canaria, see if I can run my business from there. And as you can see here, it says 1, 2 new big clients and time out to think and plan strategy. So all of that is happening, and these are all people on this call right now where they're actually achieving great successes, really just applying the different things that we talk about here on our call as well. And we have all our different partners. Michelle's on here, pre-launch of the UK Trust Awards. So anyone who's been following up along that, we've done. She did a great job with the Australia Trust Awards, and now really increasing the size of that with the UK Trust Awards coming up. So lots of really great successes. Go track it and have a look through all of those as well. And then you see where challenges have in common, and they show up in the question side. So I'm just going to pick a couple of the questions to give some answers to, because I think there's some here which really kind of fit in with everybody, right, in terms of where you're at and what you're doing. So let's take Amy, for example. So Amy Riccardi, she says, I'm phasing out one consulting business to start pursuing one aspect of my work exclusively. Let's just say I'm a typical Dynamo creator, and my old consulting business was focused on too many things. And that happens to a lot of people who are creators. You say, what am I going to do, when I want to do it, what does success look like a year from now? It allows you to clear out all the stuff that doesn't add to that success, because it's usually only one or two things you're doing that are really important. So by putting a future vision together, that really helps. I've narrowed down my practice to one more strategic piece of work and want to take that global. My question is about balancing time between the current work that is bringing my current income and the work that will lay the foundation for a much bigger future. So many of you will be in that situation right now. It's like, well, I'm doing one thing that's making money. Maybe it's a job. Maybe it's actually, selling something to some clients where I'm making money, but I don't want to do that long term. Now think of that as Clark Kent time. Because even Superman has to be Clark Kent some of the time. So if that's Clark Kent time, you want to minimize your Clark Kent time, but not to the extent that you can't go out and afford the stretchy pants and the cape, right? You still need to be Superman. So Amy can look at it and say, right, how much money do I need for me to know that I've bought the rest of my time? Like how much to cover myself so I don't go infrared? So what's my cost that I need every month to cover myself? You work out what that is. You then say, okay, how many days a week do I need to work in Clark Kent time with my existing clients, my existing business? Maybe it's 3 days a week. And you might say, okay, if it's 3 days a week, that means that as long as I do those 2 days of Superman time. So spend, and no specific, don't just say, I'll do it when I do it. It's like most specifically when those days are. Maybe they're like Thursday, Friday. Maybe they're like Tuesday and Thursday. You set those dates aside so you know when you're Clark Kent, and you go to the Clark Kent space to actually get that job done. So you don't go daydreaming into Superman time, and then you go physically somewhere else at Superman time. If you're in a business and you're starting a new business up, don't try and start a new business in the same place where you're in the old business. Change your environment. Go create a Superman space. Maybe it's in maybe it's in a cafe, maybe it's in Starbucks, maybe it's at home. Maybe you're at home and it's in a different room in your home, right? But by actually creating a different space where when you show up, you're not even thinking about the old business, and you've got that time aside, it allows you to get disciplined to make it work. And even make sure the team you're working with is a different team. So you don't end up getting all merged and squashed between different things, and before you know it, you either spent not enough time as Clark Kent or not enough time as Superman, right? So you're setting that up, budget the time, budget the environments you're setting up for yourself as well. Critical, because if you don't do that, and think of it, when you were at school, you did that, right? The bell would go, you go to a different class for maths. The bell would go, you go to a different class for French. So you would actually show up in a different place, and you stop thinking about maths, and you start thinking about French, right? So do the same thing when it comes to your own success. All right, take another example of a question here. Let's take a question on real estate, by the way, for Dan. Well, you just heard 2 people who have actually got into the transformational side of real estate. So the key thing there is to keep connecting with other people. That's one of the most important things of all. We have a tempo question, which is the opposite of creative, so I'm going to take that one. So this is from Trisha. As a tempo who constantly questions, I move this forward so that I have blaze and creativity in the business. As a service industry, I'm totally reliant on investment and donations with little return except the feel-good factor, right? Well, there's 2 things here. The first is whenever you're at tempo and steel, which are basically these 2 here, right? So we're kind of like covering, let's have a look here. All right, so we're covering basically, where is my document? Okay, open it up again. Okay, so basically here you can see tempo is a when, steel is a how. These people on this side, those of you on the call who are on this side, don't enjoy going out and trying to find business, right? Whereas those on the Dynamo and Blaze side do enjoy that. I had a conversation today with one of my Crystal Circle members, and she was like, geez, I keep on trying to start a business and it's not working out for me, right? And not only that, it turns out that she's really awesome at project management. In fact, her project management gives her a really, really well-paid job at one of the big phone companies. But when it came down to how much she was actually satisfied doing that, it was like a 4 out of 10. And the reason for that was that it was kind of like Clark Kent time. There was nothing purpose-driven about it. So I went straight online. I found basically a URL, which is purpose-driven projects. I said, why don't you go get purpose-driven projects, create a business where she'd already gone out to 1 or 2 Crystal Circle members and saying, do you want help in your project management? They said, we desperately need help in our project management. I said, you make sure that you're working with people who need help in actually driving their projects, where they've got something purpose-driven, so something to do with education, environment, something that you're passionate about, saying, I'm only going to take on 3 clients. Each of those clients is going to pay you an extra $5,000 each, which means you're going to end up making a good chunk of extra money on top of your salary. That each one of them, you're going to get a fight for like $25,000 for the $5,000. And if you actually just do that, you're going to get the right clients on board. You're going to have like more of a 10 out of 10 instead of a 4 out of 10. You've got a brand that you're building, and you're now delivering in such a way you don't have to go find new clients where you're trying to figure out how to basically sell the promotion. You've got clients that have already got products that are now using your skill set to project manage. And straight away, she's like, that makes total sense. And so she's effectively taken the pathway of saying, how do I connect to people where I'm providing a service to complete what they're doing well, as opposed to try and start something new. So that's what I say to you. Tempo or steer, rather than going and looking at things and say, well, as we go forward, there'll be people here that need that kind of support. I can tell you, even the likes of Simon and Scott, they need executors right now to help them. And so by knowing that you're a good executor, is getting connected to the right person that you can now actually do business with, which is a real key to all of this, right? Okay, I'm just going to take one more question from here. In a month's time, you can add it in here again, right? We're going to keep on adding new questions as we go. And as time goes through, you're going to find that the people on this call will also help with others when you're actually asking those questions as well. So I'm going to give a chance to ask a question here from Andrew. And Andrew, basically, who's a supporter profile, so this is now on the Blaze side. He says, can you review how I, as a supporter, have taken a couple of existing ideas and what Wealth Dynamics personal flow profiles I ideally get involved in as I roll these ideas out into Australia? Both the Taru, which is basically one of our Crystal Circle members in Czech Republic, and that's Radka, and Passion Test, which is one of our genius partners. You can see a lot of people are connecting in with all the people I'm connecting in with as well. Passion Test, which is run by Chris and Janet Atwood, are largely undeveloped in Australia and New Zealand. And so what Andrew's done is taken 2 concepts that work in other countries and bring them to his country in Australia. So think about that. Sometimes you find the very, very best ideas already are being run by someone else in another country. You bring them basically into your country as well. And he's saying they're largely undeveloped in Australia and New Zealand. Both are really powerful ways to create inspired businesses operating in flow and with effortless passion with brilliant employee engagement, right? So, well, the first thing, Andrew, is you're absolutely on the right track, right? I mean, you're doing the right thing by getting connected to 2 people that already are on the Dynamo or more Dynamo Blaze side. So you can then execute on the supporter side. So you're already doing the right thing by doing that. The most important thing now is modeling. And what I mean by that is, obviously, those have both started up in ways that they've actually got from a 0 standing start, and they've actually then evolved to the point where they're making their 5,000 or 10,000 a month. And that's your first question. It's the same for all of you. There's someone who's already done what you're trying to do. So go connect to those people. And so, for example, going back to Radka and saying, right, let's just get to that first 5,000 or 10,000. Let's take the same things you did. We're going to apply the same things here. I know she started with the Mastermind, so you start with the Mastermind. You get that going in Australia. And similarly with the whole of the Passion Test side, it's like, right, what's the one simplest way to generate money? So when you actually have Janet Atwood who comes out, does an event, people get excited by it, people around promote it. She's got people she knows in Australia who'd help promote it. We've got people we know who'd help promote it. So you actually say, right, well, then we're going to actually just repeat what already works, and then we'll evolve it from there, right? So a supporter doesn't have to be asking the question what, they just have to be asking the question who, which is like, okay, who do I need to connect with already who has the answers? And then life gets super simple as a result of that as well. Now, we could keep on going answering questions, but I wanted to just touch on a couple of questions. I wanted to highlight successes. I wanted to really just emphasize, as we kind of close off in this call, to everybody, just what an awesome group we have. At the moment, we've got 69 people who've actually still just a small percentage of those who actually have been listening in and who are part of our Entrepreneur Mastermind at the moment. You become discoverable to everyone else who's on this call as well. So on the next call, everyone should be more in sync with basically adding new information in here, adding more questions in here as well. And on the next call, we're going to be taking the next step, which is reviewing some of those future visions and saying, well, based on that being your future vision, here is the next pathway forward. And the way you can put your future vision in is on the next one as we go down. We'll put down a piece for April here. So this is April. So we'll put a bit down here from May. And in the May section, as we put it in here, biggest month challenge, blah, blah, all this kind of stuff, we'll add in one extra one here, which is link to future vision, right? And you can just upload it as a Google Doc. You can upload it on Box or Dropbox. And then if you were to fill that out and put a link in here, then we can so we can see kind of what you wrote and what you've got planned for this year. And then what we'll do is help co-create that as we go through this year as well. So I'm really looking forward to the next call and seeing where we're at. If you have not yet watched the video here with Richard Branson, you after this call can go ahead and watch the video. If you have any other comments and big learnings, post them up here as well underneath this this link here, and I will also review all these kind of comments and questions afterwards. And if there's any immediate questions I can answer, I'll kind of like post them on here as well. But otherwise, thanks everyone so much for this call. If you didn't hit the call, I hope you've enjoyed the recording. Thanks everyone for being a part of it as well, and we'll catch up with you all on our next mastermind in a month's time. All right, thanks a lot, guys, and thanks for Scott and Simon.